Hi and welcome back to Gamers Web. Today we're going to take a look at the latest release from our good friends at Modiphius Entertainment, which is the John Carter of Mars role-playing game. This is the limited edition slipcover version of the game, and it is really beautiful. It's one of the nicest looking role-playing games I've seen in a long time. Okay, so I'm just going to basically talk you through the rule book and the second book that comes with the game, and we'll have a quick look through them. I'm not going to go into too much depth because I don't want to spoil things for people, because I don't really like watching videos where people show you every single page. I'm just going to show you the basics of the game, and I've got another full review of the game coming up shortly, which will talk you through the basics of character generation and combat and the usual kind of thing you find in role-playing games. Okay, so first off the bat, we have our outer case, which is absolutely beautifully rendered. And if I turn it to the side, you can see on the spine that we've got the absolutely stunning artwork all the way through. And here we have some green Martians, some Tarkus, and if I can pick it up, and there's the other end. Right, so this is all, it makes one big image, which is quite obvious once we actually get into the game what it's for. Now, that's the side of the game, and the front and back. And if we look at the top, that's where our books are. So our books are at the top, and we have the John Carter of Mars Adventures in the Dying World of Barsoom core rulebook, and we also have the Phantoms of Mars campaign guide. Okay, so we're going to start off with the core rulebook first, obviously. So again, there is the cover, and this is the campaign book. Okay, so first thing you'll notice is it's not in the usual landscape portrait format. It's in landscape, which is quite a bold move because not many companies tend to do role-playing games in a landscape format. They try to go for the usual A4 style, this way up like that, in portrait mode, but this is in landscape. I think it actually works better because of some of the artwork is actually amazing on the interior. Okay, so first off, we've got the system, which is 2D20, which anybody who's familiar with Modiphius' work knows that games such as Dust Tactics, Warfare, and Dust the Role-Playing Game, Star Trek Adventures, Conan, let me see what else, Mutant Chronicles, Infinity, oh, the list goes on. What's the latest one? Atom Cthulhu. All these games all use a 2D20 system, which we'll come into when I actually do the review. And Adventures on the Dying World of Barsoom. Now, Barsoom is the Martian name for Mars. And if the name John Carter does sound familiar, there was a movie that came out a few years ago in 2012, I think it was, which was the John Carter movie from Disney. Movie is absolutely brilliant. It is really good. Unfortunately, Disney dropped the ball and didn't market it correctly, and the movie bombed, and it was very expensive. It cost them a lot of money and it bombed. But the movie is a beautiful piece, so if you've not seen it, check it out. It's very good. It's a good action movie. Okay, so that's the front of the cover, and then on the back we have our blurb and Adventures on the Dying World of Barsoom. Okay, so we've got a little bit of blurb here from one of Edgar Rice Burroughs' stories of John Carter. Now, John Carter was created by Edgar Rice Burroughs, who was the creator of Conan. He also created quite a few other pulp characters, but his two most famous ones are Conan and John Carter. Sorry, forgive me. I will rephrase that. I don't know why I said Conan. Edgar Rice Burroughs was the creator of John Carter of Mars, and his more famous creation was Tarzan. Don't ask me why on earth I said Conan then. I've got pulp on the brain at the moment. Okay, so in this we get an overview of Barsoom and its people. It's ideal to introduce new players to the worlds of John Carter of Mars. Detailed chapters on Barsoonian technology, creatures and cultures. New talent focused narrative variation of the 2D20 system, including step-by-step character generation, system designed to create heroes from the variety of backgrounds and concepts. Create a wide variety of characters such as a dashing red Martian duelist, a brilliant firstborn scientist, a savage beachmaster, a courageous airship officer, or even an earthborn character, so players can follow in the bounding footsteps of John Carpenter himself. A detailed narrators section filled with information on how to run, genre, and setting appropriate campaigns, including information about the great and terrible secrets of Barsoom. 3 areas of play based on the adventures of John Carter himself. Adventure during the Dotar Sojat era, or the adventure during the time where Carter became Prince of Helium, and in the years after, when he was believed dead, or fight alongside Carter and his allies during the later Jedak's era. An introductory adventure, Mind Merchants of Mars, to get players started, and narrators as well. Okay, you'll have to forgive me with some of my reading there, because I'm reading over my camera. It's quite difficult to read when you wear glasses and you can't see what you're doing. Okay, so just to reiterate, John Carter and Tarzan, not Conan. And before anybody jumps down my throat, it was a slip of the tongue. Conan was created by, of course, not Edgar Rice Burroughs. Conan was created by Robert E. Howard, who is another one of my favourite authors of all time. Now, just a bit of context from my point of view, which you'll probably see in some of my fluff, is I love pulp. I've loved pulp since I was about 7 years old, 6, 7 years old, when my grandfather used to read me Tarzan and John Carter and Biggles and Flashman and Alan Quatermain and lots and lots of other pulp era fiction that have been written around the turn of the century. Now, John Carter is from about 1908, so it's quite old. You know, it's been around for over 100 years. And the basis premises of John Carter, to jump straight in, is he is a former soldier in the US Confederacy who finds himself, after a freak accident, transported to Mars. And he then discovers that on Mars he has abilities that set him out from the other races on Mars. He's stronger, he's able to do a lot of things that they can't do. So we'll jump straight in now anyway. Okay, so that's the front cover of the game. Then on the inside we have our map of Barsoom. If you just bear a second, I'm just going to reposition the camera so you can get a much better view. There we go. There we go. Right, so we have our map of Barsoom. As I said, Barsoom is actually Mars. It's the Martian name for Mars. And we have our contents page and the line development and the rules development by Jack Norris. There's a foreword by Jack Norris in here, and by one of my best friends, Ben Gray Beaton. And look around, there's also my friend Sam, and obviously Chris Birch, who's the CEO of Modiphius. Okay. And our contents page. So I'll just go very, very quickly go through this. So we've got Welcome to Barsoom, Creating an Adventurer, Talents, Adventuring in Barsoom, Weapons and Tech, Growing Your Legend, History of Barsoom, The Green Hordes, The Red Kingdoms, Orca and Beyond, Beyond Barsoom, Narrator of Mars, Beasts of Barsoom, Secrets of Barsoom, Champions of Barsoom, Mind Merchants of Mars, and Further Adventures, and then the indices. And there's our introduction by Jack Norris from September 2018. Welcome to Barsoom. So this basically gives you your background on what I've just said, basically that Edgar Rice Burroughs created the John Carter series of books. Now, there are a lot of John Carter books that have been published, that were published by Edgar Rice Burroughs himself. He went on to write over 60 novels during his life, and a lot of other writers have actually taken up the John Carter mantle and written extended novels set on Barsoom and with the characters that have been created by Edgar Rice Burroughs down the years. And as I say, his most famous creation was Lord Greystoke, who is better known as Tarzan. Okay, so, and then now we have got our rationalism, romanticism, and pulp role-playing. And there's the word again, pulp, as in Pulp Fiction, and not the Quentin Tarantino movie, but the setting of anything that's high concept, high fantasy, high adventure. So pulp falls into lots of different genres, but the main overall emphasis is high concept fantasy. So Conan is pulp, Flash Gordon is pulp, Buck Rogers was pulp, all this kind of thing. We have a glossary of terms. So there are a lot of really wondrous technologies on Barsoom, like flying airships that defy gravity, the wondrous city of Helium itself, a lot of really wonderful things that we'll actually get into as we go further on. So this is basically just a quick glossary of the terms of Martian terminology and the measure of Mars, basically about units and stuff like time and distance in Barsoomium. Getting ready to play, what you will need if you're new to role-playing, this is a must. It should be in every role-playing game, regardless of what the game is or what genre it is. There should always be an introduction on how to role-play the game. So the eras of play, as I've mentioned, there's 3 different eras of play. There's the Dota Soja era, which is when John Carter was first up on Barsoom. He basically became allied with the Tharks, or Tharks, which are the green-skinned Martians that have got 4 arms, and they are about 8 feet tall. They're an insectoid race. And then the next one is the Prince of Helium era, and finally you've got Jeddak of Jeddak's era. So this is a little bit more information on that, about the Prince of Helium and the Jeddak of Jeddak's. Okay, so Chapter 1 is, Section 1, Chapter 2 is creating your character. And here we have our different general constructs. So we go through the various steps. So step 1 is general concept. What do you want to play? Step 2 is your attributes for your starting character. Step 3, selecting your race. Step 4, selecting your archetype. Step 5, select your descriptor. Step 6, talents. Step 7, starting renown and equipment. Step 8, choose a flaw. Step 9, name and finalise concepts and attributes. Dead simple, and these things walk you through it. So general concepts here, like, so we've got as examples Wandering Princess, Reformed Assassin, Airship Raider, Adventuring Scientist, and Pantheon Warrior, and Lost Explorer. Those are the basic concepts we've got there. And then playing John Carter and his friends. So if you want to play as John Carter or any of the other characters from Rice Burroughs stories, the stats are given further along in the book. And again, more art. Okay, so selecting your attributes. So attributes range between 1 and 12. If someone has a 1 or 2, they are well below average. They are, if you have a dexterity of 1 or 2, you are very clumsy, you can't do very much. If you have a dexterity of 10, 11 or 12, you are legendary. You could probably balance a penny on your head whilst you're in the middle of a sword fight and juggle with the other hand, that kind of thing. You know, like, you really are good at what you do. So the average tends to be between 5 and 6. Sorry, 4 is the average, and 5 and 6 is just above average. Okay, so we have selecting your race. Little side boxes, which gives you a little bit insight into Barsoom. So you got the Afterlife and Truth of Issus and Martian Telepathy. And then we start going on to our actual character classes. So these are our races. So we have the Red Martians. These are the ones that John Carter tends to deal with quite a lot in the early novels, and also the Green Martians as well. The Red Martians are red, they look like humans, They can breed with humans, and they've been quite modest here because most of Edgar Rice Burroughs' novels tend to have the Martian women, and most of the Martian men, not all of them, naked, apart from a little bit of armour. And it's like buxom, bikini-clad warriors, but without the bikinis, because he was a bit like that, because he was a product of his era, because this was written over 100 years ago. Okay, so these are the Tharks. These are one of the hoods. They live in the wastelands of Barsoom, and they're green Martians. They're about 8 to 9 feet tall. They're very muscular, and they have 6 limbs. They've got 4 arms, 2 legs, and very big tusks. And the tusks are quite important because the tusks actually, the bigger the tusks, the more manly type you are. Then we have the Hokar. They're yellow-skinned, and they come from, they tend to be travellers, so they appear all over Barsoom, but they've got their own capital, which is found on an area called Kadabra. I can't really remember too much about those because it's been quite a while since I've actually read the books. Earthborn basically is anyone who's born on Jasum, which is the Martian name for Earth. And these guys have different strengths and abilities to Martians because they're born on a different gravity. So your muscles are much stronger. So you're something that you find quite simple on someone on Barsoom would find almost impossible. You can leap great distances, and you are very strong because you've got a much lower atmosphere. And then mixed heritage, so you can be of mixed heritage. You could be the son of someone from Earth and from Barsoom. Firstborn is your other race as well. So basically, you're spawned from the Tree of Life, and your people ruled Barsoom before the other races arose. And many firstborns still consider themselves the secret masters of the world. Okay, we'll get into that in a minute. So we've got archetypes. There are more archetypes coming, and there are, I think, some more in the campaign book. But these are the basic archetypes you get in the game. And if you speak with your games master, I'm positive you could probably make more archetypes up. So you've got Earthship Officer, Assassin, Beastmaster and Duelist, Envoy, Explorer, Fugitive, Gladiator, Guide, Healer, Panther, Rogue, Scientist, Soldier, Spy. And then you can create your own unique archetypes, as I just mentioned. Now, please bear in mind, I'm actually looking through this myself for the first time. This isn't my copy, this is a very dear friend, Bill Heron, who does work for Modiphius. Bill has just lent me this, and thanks very much, Bill. I'm just showing you guys, and we can see how we go. So descriptors are quite important in 2D20 system because descriptors give you bonuses when you play with them. So example of descriptors here are bold, courageous, fierce, brash, canny, charming, driven, dashing, brilliant, stalwart, romantic, thoughtful, savage, disciplined, devoted. And when we do the review, we'll get more into that. So step 6 is talents, step 7 is renown and starting equipment and your core equipment, and then choose a flaw. Now, flaws and merits in role-playing games can be hit or miss. In 2D20, they tend to be very, very tight and quite good. And if you've got a flaw, your flaw really does show in the role-playing game when you're actually playing the game, rather than just being a word or a sentence written on a piece of paper. It does come through. So finally, you name your character and go through the last steps. So there's various names here for your characters. Now, obviously, I'm reading this myself. When you read through Edgar Rice Burroughs' books, a lot of the names you will pronounce them in your mind probably different than somebody else. So Dejector or Thark, you know, things like that, or Dator, they might be pronounced differently than they are actually written on the page, but that's the way you see them in your head, that's where you pronounce them. Okay, so you got a quick walkthrough on how to do your character generation on one sheet, and it's on 2 pages actually, so it's quite simple. More sample artwork. There's a red Martian male with some weapons and a sample of a character. So you've got a courageous Earthborn explorer, and there are a few more. These are ready to play. Bold Earthborn soldier, canny red Martian envoy, and as we see, just quickly, using the attributes, this guy has got Daring of 8, where this guy's got Daring of 7, and this guy's got a Passion of 7, where this one's got a Passion of 8. This one's got a Might of 8, where this one's got a Might of 4. Now he's an Earthborn, so he gets a plus on his Might because he's stronger because of his background. Stalwart red Martian duelist, charming Okar spy, driven firstborn airship officer, thoughtful green Martian guide. And then we go on to talents. Now, talents are the skills and abilities that round your character off. And we'll go into those into more detail. So you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 grade talents. And multiple effects with your talents. They can do lots and lots of different things. They're very good in the Star Trek role-playing game. And they're quite good in Conan as well. And with this being a fantasy system, they'll be very similar. So we're just going to crack straight on because we're on page 43. So section 2 is adventuring in Barsoom, weapons and technology, and growing your legend. So this basically now introduces you to rolling your dice, all the dice conventions, how you attribute dice to your attribute tests and your skill rolls and things like that. Test difficulties and complications, attribute challenges, success, voluntary failure, which can be beneficial to your character. Sometimes it can actually be detrimental, but can be sometimes beneficial. Momentum, which is very, very important, because momentum evokes the heroic scientific romance of Barsoom and John Carter. Carter often finds that one success leads to another, allowing him to achieve incredible, sometimes next to impossible feats. However, Carter also finds himself trapped by circumstances, an indicator that threat is ever more present and a forced challenge to his utmost as he strives to succeed. So you generate momentum, but when you generate momentum, which is a mechanic in the game, you also generate threat as well. So the better you go, the more chance of something going wrong. And so we've got the examples of momentum there and how it works and how you can spend it, and then leads us on to threat. So you use threat by the DM of a James Master. Threat can be used to actually add another narrative element into the game that is without the scenario that you're playing. Action scenes, so you've got your turn sequence and your turn order, and movement zones, abstract zones, restrictions, distance, other senses, perception, and using miniatures. Now, Modiphius do a range of really beautiful resin miniatures for the John Carter range, starting with people like John Carter himself, and then going to things like the white apes, and which are race that live in the mountains, big, huge, sentient gorillas, and the Tharks, and John Carter's faithful dog, things like that, who's not actually a dog, it's a lizard. And then, okay, so movement and terrain. Something I didn't notice because I've only just opened the book, we've got a ribbon in the middle there, so you can actually keep a track on your page and where you're up to. Actions and attacks. There's one of the white apes. As you see, it's got 4 arms, and it stands about 18-19 feet tall. They're huge, and Modiphius do a range of miniatures, including those. Damage and recovery. So this is all your combat system, using luck and how luck will affect you with the game. And weapons, technology, and equipment. Now, weapons can be ranged or melee, or poisoned, or fearsome psychic weapons, explosives, lots of different weapons here. Now, because the game is a fantasy system, it does use something similar to gunpowder and technology that was around in the 1800s, because John Carter himself was transported in 1864 or 65 towards the end of the Civil War. I think it might have actually been just after the Civil War that he was transported to Barsoom from Earth, and when he was transported, he had with him the technology of forging weapons, because of the year he grew up in. Okay, right, so moving on, we've got equipment and things like medicines, torches, illumination devices, field glasses and sights, chronometer, invisibility, how to use invisibility in the games. Technology. Now, Martians have flyers. They've got a lower gravity than Earth, so they have the ability to actually fly using radium motor drives, which act like an lighter than air technology and allow them to fly. And some of these things fly very, very quick. Ground flyers, equilibrium motors, Earthships, flyers and equilibrium motors in games, experimental vessels and interplanetary craft. Now, there are ways to go to other planets in John Carter. You can go to other places other than Earth and Mars. Venus is one of the planets that you can go to, and also, if I can remember correctly, I think you can go to Neptune and Uranus and maybe even Jupiter. Okay, so pneumatic trains, submarines, because there are water on Mars. Growing your legend, which is basically about using your experience and getting renown and being recognised throughout the world of Barsoom. Accolades, your allies, getting titles so you can become a Jeddak, which is a leader of a nation. It's a very, very high rank. And then you can go be something like a guildsman or a guilds person, which is like a low rank. So Jeddak is or Jedra is the highest rank that you can get as a title. History of Barsoom. So again, absolutely stunning artwork. Life on Barsoom, warrior customs and cultures, religions, slavery, institutional sexism on Mars. Now, as I say, this was written at the turn of the 20th century, so there are a lot of outdated and sexist motifs in there, but slaves don't tend to feature very heavily in the John Carter stories, but gender roles are a different thing. You get a lot of stories that have, as I say, naked women in them, and because it was exotic at the time. So this will give you a little bit more about it, but it's not, as it says here, it's never of the abusive woman-hating variety. Thus, it was quite easy to say that Barsoomians realised women were capable warriors and leaders. In fact, one of the main characters is a female character, and it's likely that in the modern era, modern media presentations of Carter books continue to do this. Okay, entertainment, crime, slavery, resources, technology and architecture, culture and traditions on the Green Horde. Right, so the Green Horde are these beautiful guys here. These are awesome. I'm just going to quickly zoom into that. So this is a nice picture of the Tharak. Okay, so I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. It's the way I've always read it in my head, Tharak. Or it could be Trak, but I always pronounce it as this because that's the way my grandfather used to read them to me when I was a kid. If you know the correct pronunciation, which I probably do, just let me know in the comments. Okay, languages and traditions of them. And Green Hordes again. Red Kingdoms, so this is more about the Red Martians. And then John Carter and the Red Martians. So Dottar Shazat, who is one of the major cities that my brain's gone. Wherever. Dottar Shazat is the first setting more or less of where John Carter actually meets Deja Thoris, who is one of the female Martians. In the movie, she's depicted as a normal human-looking person. In the books, she's actually a red Martian. Prince of Helium, Jeddak of Jeddaks, which are the different eras, red nations of Mars. Helium, which is the biggest city on Mars. Zaganda, which is another city. These are all different cities throughout Mars. As you see, there's lots of beasts with 6 legs, because 6 limbs seems to be quite popular. And then we go to Okar and beyond, which is where the yellow people come from. So also, we've got basically a look at all of the different races. So beyond Barsoom, we have Earth, Luna, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, and the moons of Barsoom. So that'd be Phomos and Deimos, but they're known as different names. I think one's called Churos and Tarids. No, Tarids are actually a race. Okay, right, so just crack on, because I'm wasting time trying to read things over my camera. Okay, so section 4, Narrators of Mars, Beasts of Barsoom, Secrets of Barsoom, Champions of Barsoom, 9 Merchants of Mars, Further Adventures. So we're getting towards the end of the first book now, and we're on page 140. How to run the game. So this is basically for your games master or narrator, how to get the successful game with your players, and using the system to its full advantage, using the mechanics that have been given to you, and the background and the history. What is romance? Planetary romance. What is rationalist pulp? These two are probably really, really important for you to read through, because they'll give you a very good overview how you get the tone and feel of the game itself. Creating villains. Now, crafting a good villain is always difficult. I've got an article up on Gamers Web somewhere, which I might rewrite on actually crafting villains for your games. It was originally written for a Star Wars role-playing game to try and create a decent villain for your games. Okay, so selecting an era, and then we go on to expanding your worlds, conventions of the genre, crafting, courtly love and intrigue, sources of inspiration. So Burroughs works, myths and legends. So you've got myths and legends on Earth, which you could transport to Mars. Literature. So there is a lot of stuff, like Jack Vance did a lot of follow-ons to Barsoom. So did Les Bride de Camp, as far as I'm aware. Cinema. Trip to the Moon from George Méliès, Impossible Voyage. Then other things like, an example here is Seven Samurai, because it could be perfect. You could transpose that setting to Mars. Beasts of Barsoom, which will feature some of the crazy creatures you find on the Red Planet. Okay, as I mentioned, this chapter deals with the fantastical beasts that appear on the wonderful world of Barsoom. So we have an Apt, which is a big hippo-like creature. A lot of the creatures tend to have compound eyes and tusks, are very insectoid, but they tend to be a cross between an insect and a mammal. Arbox, Bannath, which are like a 6-legged lion. And then it's been quite a while since I've read through the John Carter books. I'm going to reread through them before I actually start playing the game. Cowot, which is, they're like a dog. They have a really unique ability because they can move so fast. They can move at about 90 miles an hour. They're very, very quick. Almost preternatural speed that they can move for. And John Carter finds himself with a Calotte that becomes one of his best friends and companions during the game, during the film and the box. Okay, right. Darsine, which are Malgo, which is a flying creature, Plantmans, Orlux, Shalane, and then other monsters here like the Safe. Synthetic men, Martian spiders, which are not nice, and then thoughts. These are again, like a cross between a lion and a dinosaur. Quite nasty. They're like a big rat. And then white apes. White apes feature predominantly throughout all the books. They are very, very fearsome. They can rip you apart with very, very little effort at all. Okay, so their talents: they're fearsome beasts, they're a mighty beast, they're hard to kill, they've got predatory instincts, a dramatic return, and they're able to throw massive rocks at your party. So they're not very accurate, but if they do hit, they're going to cause a lot of damage. Okay, then further beasts. Secrets of Barsoom, so the River Is, which is the main, it's also known as the River of Death. It's like a sacred river that runs through Barsoom. And as you get more and more into the books, the River Is tells you it's very mysterious, and it's one of the journeys that the characters undergo between life and death, is going down the River Is. White Martian player character, Omanian Sea, Dead City of Horse, and then, as you can see, these Lothar and Lotharians. Strange locales and wonders, mind control. These are special powers that some of the races have. Strange and lost technology. Champions of Barsoom. So here we have our actual characters from the various eras. So the Dota Shatat Sojat era, we have Deja Torres, who is John Carter's bit on the side. She's beautiful, she's deadly, and she's a red Martian princess. And she is more or less his equal. She's a princess in her own right. John Carter himself, we've got a background of him in all the different eras, and then we've got this background here about Captain Jack Carter of the Virginia, being the first Earthman to actually reach Mars, but he did it not with a spaceship. Okay, where are we? Countess Khan, who's a red Martian. Solar, who's unique among the Green Martians, who's one of the leaders and one of the really close friends of John Carter. And the other two characters, Morris Kajak and Selenius Oil. Right, so Tars Tarkas is the Jeddik of Thark. He is like one of the princes of the Thark. He's one of the main characters in the first 3 or 4 novels, and a very, very close companion of John Carter once they become friends. Prince of Helium, and then I'm not going to go through these too much, but as you can see, the artwork is phenomenal. And then we go to the Jeddak of Jeddaks, which is basically the King of Kings, which is more or less is boils down to. So this is Tara. She's the daughter of John Carter. She's like a high-born princess of Helium, and she's John Carter and Deja Torres's daughter. Ulysses Paxton, who's an Earthborn soldier who, much like John Carter, was transported to Mars. Then you've got different types of your character attribute, player character attributes and things, archetypes, that's what I was looking for. Backer characters, and then at the end, which I'm not going to go through because I don't want to actually spoil any adventures or anything. These are all NPCs, lots and lots of NPCs, and this this episode here is Mind Merchants of Mars is an adventure, which is where we're going to close this book because I don't want to spoil that, and that's the bottom part of the map. Now the map is actually available from Modiphius as well, so I'll just put that one to one side and we'll have a very quick look at the campaign book, but I don't want to actually give too much away of this again because again it's a campaign. So amazing cover on the front, And then on the back, we've got our narrative. Uncover the Phildun conspiracy using your wits, brawn, and the help of your companions. Adventure to familiar locales and new locations as your campaign takes you across the dying red planet. New rules and statistics for narrator characters are included for each adventure. New creatures are introduced, along with new rules and the statistics explained. Narrator advice and rules for miniature combat. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly briefly go through this because, as I say, I don't want to spoil it. And again, we've got our map of Barsoom, our credits, and then so we have the Swords of Korath, Traitors and Fugitives, Raiders of Kol, Spectres of the Mind, Swords of Mars, 2d20 skirmish rules, and that's all. Your section 3 is all your miniature rules. So just a quick look like that, have a quick look at the artwork. I'm not going to go through any of this because I don't really want to actually spoil things. So Traitors and Fugitives, right, what we'll do is we'll just go straight back to section 3 and we'll go to, sorry, like I say, I don't want to spoil it. Right, so that's the epilogue, that'll be at the end of the adventure, and we'll get on to section 3, which is the skirmish rules, which is what I was looking for. Okay, so this is giving you the miniature rules for 2d20 skirmish, which is, I think this is the first time this has appeared. Hang on, no, I think they might have appeared in Star Trek Adventures as well. Okay, so gives you your basics on how to play the game, and what you need, and how to incorporate with your role-playing games themselves. And you get to see beautiful miniatures like this white ape. As you see, it's got 4 arms and 2 legs, and it's huge. And how to use your various abilities during the game, and advanced rules, damage, objectives, all the kind of things you find in a miniature game. Martian flyers, so from a ground flyer to a bulk flyer. And then we have unit profiles, so you've got like a Helium fighter, Tharks, Red Martian rifleman, Zogalian fighting crew, and then lots of more. And then the heroes, so John Carter gets his own miniature, so does Deus Torres, Tars Tarkas, you know, they all get their major, Tara of Helium, they all get their own miniatures. And Woola, who's his faithful dog, gets his own is Kiat, gets his own ability. Special ability here, Unbeaten Speed. It can move faster than any other Martian beast. Mula moves 8 inches per action. And I think he's got 4 actions. If he's got 4 actions and he's got 8 inches, he can move 36 inches in, if he just moves flat out. So I'll have to read through that because I've not actually read through the miniature rules. And then skirmish scenarios. And that's about it. So there's more scenarios there. And then we go to the back, and the fall of the Edelion, which is a miniature campaign. So that's just the skirmish rules and a sample map. And that's the end of the book. And there's a glossary. If you look at the Tarks, they're like really, really tall miniatures. They're probably about 2.5 inches tall. They're very beautiful miniatures, and overall this is a very, very beautiful game. Now this game is available from our good friends at Modiphius, but it is limited, so you need to act quickly. And there is also the standard version of the John Carter of Mars, which doesn't come in the slipcase and doesn't come with the miniature rules and campaign book. So let me know what you think in the comments. I'm sorry this is a little bit long-winded. It's I tried to keep it under 30 minutes and I've gone over by about 20 minutes. But that's a quick look through John Carter of Mars by our good friends at Modiphius Entertainment. We will have a full in-depth review of the game with a breakdown on how you generate your characters and how the game plays very, very shortly on Gamers Web. So visit modiphius.com for more information on John Carter, and don't forget to check out the works of Edgar Rice Burroughs if you're interested in pulp. And once again, John Carter of Mars and Tarzan, not Conan, were created by Edgar Rice Burroughs. I don't think I'm ever going to live that down now. If my grandfather was still alive, he'd absolutely be furious with me. Well, he wouldn't really, because my granddad actually would have laughed about that. So, My many thanks go to our good friends at Modiphius for producing such a brilliant looking game. I can't wait to actually play this. I've got a lot of people very interested in playing it, and I'm going to write a few custom scenarios that I'll put up on Gamers Web for free. And again, my many, many thanks to my good friend Bill Heron for loaning me this copy so I can look through it. Once again, I've been Mark. Until next time, thank you for watching. Goodbye. Visit gamersweb.co.uk for the latest news, reviews, gossip, cosplay, and much, much more.